jargon. For example, the Winter-Harnish report uses the word vision prolifically. But what does it mean? What is a vision? Well, I looked it up. In my Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary, it has two. A, something seen in a dream, trance, or ecstasy, a supernatural experience. B, an object of imagination. And I found an old dictionary, copyrighted 1923. It's a divine revelation, an apparition, the creation of the imagination. Some synonyms for Roget's thesaurus: spirit, spectre, dream, nightmare. So I ask you, is a vision a sound basis for a general plan? So please, speak not of visions, speak of reality, and say exactly what you mean. And in closing, I'd like to say, keep in mind that laws don't solve problems. Only people can do that. Measure D frees the people so they can solve real problems with real solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulvaney.
Good morning. My name is Bob Dean. I'm a director with Calaveras County Water District, and I want to point out the beautiful weather we're having outside.
Saves on our CCWD bill. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Also adds to the reliable water supply that we're also so concerned about. Ed mentioned the fact that our board unanimously voted to support Alternative C, primarily for the purpose of creating a place mark for our preservation of water rights, which is an absolutely critical issue that we have to address, despite the fact that we're considered a water-rich county. You don't have to look very far out of the county to realize that the bulk of the water that's produced and stored in Calaveras County goes someplace else. And by supporting Alternative C, which is the larger population, we can extend the possibility of these water reservations a little bit further. That being said, that's only one of at least 21 different uses, of beneficial use, identified by the state of California for water use. And from my perspective as a director, it's important for CCWD to develop partnerships not only with the development and growth communities, but also with the agricultural communities, the environmental communities, and other organizations that have an interest in water utilization and preservation in Calaveras County. And that's something that's absolutely critical to me. I'm thankful I don't have to worry about property rights. All I want to do is preserve water, which I guess in a sense is a property right. And this particular Alternative C, I would ask you to weigh very heavily because it does address that issue. There's one other point that needs to be made in the process of looking through the future of Calaveras County and the general plan, is that you know, our demographics, our communities have developed on a 19th century pattern. We're scattered all over the place. So the economies of scale are very, very difficult to achieve unless we look at the issues of community-centered development and growth as well as infill. We have many, many communities that may have more vacant lots than they have houses. And this is absolutely critical, not only for the cost of infrastructure and the cost of the people who need that infrastructure, but also, again, addressing the issues of preservation of open space, the opportunities to be able to utilize water rights in a way that's going to be beneficial for not only the people who live here now, but also in the future. And another thing I'd like you to keep in mind when we talk about water, we talk about infrastructure, or anything like that, just saying it doesn't make it so. We with everything moving in the right direction, and we've talked about the possibility of taking raw water lines to the west end of the county for groundwater recharge. But the best case scenario in that particular instance would probably be 10 years out. So what we need to do is we need to begin this planning process. And I say we, I'm talking about the water agencies in the county. Begin this planning process so that we have the opportunity to provide the services that are going to be required in the future. And so that's why this kind of a partnership, this kind of a concern, and this commitment to the preservation of water rights is so important to us. The fact that we are dispersed as we are makes the economies of scale absolutely critical. I think Jeff Davidson may address this because this is a concern of his. And it doesn't matter whether it's CCWD or Wallace CSD or any of the smaller agencies. If we don't have the economy of scale, we cannot afford, particularly in the regulatory atmosphere that we have today, to be able to serve the public that we're committed to serve. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Anything? Okay.
Thank you.
I got bypassed. This is Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and we submitted the report to you. I have to apologize. If we only started this process 2 months ago, we would have a complete report for to be reviewed, and now it's only been a couple of days since we had a complete report, so it's understandable that that the consultants were giving information that was not up to date. The up-to-date report, which you've received by email and also in hard copy, and also is available on calaveras.taxpayers.org, calaveras.taxpayers.org. It's 17 pages. I'd like to cover part of that, which is the introduction, which gives really an idea of what it's really all about. And I have to put glasses on because I can't see as good as I used to. In reference to
what page you're on?
This is page 1. It's kind of like the beginning. In reference to the Calaveras County General Plan update, there are plenty of differing opinions on how the county should develop. At some of the public workshops, participants rejected the prescribed alternates A, B, and C and suggested an alternate D, which would transform existing zoning into land use designations, but also would allow maximum flexibility for future change in accordance with the free market and would protect the property rights of all. Alternate D is to provide protection of the property owner, and by establishing flexibility in land use, we would tend to change direction of land use planning from government choice to that of the free market. This would change the nature of public forums on development projects to consideration of the rights of the neighbors and the public, rather than public approval, which is so political and frequently violates property rights. We've certainly seen that in this county. In leading up to the alternatives phase of the general plan update process, the county has failed to include protecting property rights as a core consideration, especially during the visioning phase. Visioning is in quotes. The next step in the general plan update process is the goals and policies phase, in which the Board of Supervisors is to take the vision and chosen alternative and create the legally binding portion of the general plan. It's kind of like we're in the velvet glove right now, and at the end, the iron fist inside that glove will emerge, and that's police power. Alternate D does not support the processes used to derive the vision and alternates that we ask the Board of Supervisors to consider in alternate D as a replacement for both the vision and land use alternatives as presented by the Mittner-Harris report. The most important thing I think that we're concerned about is flexibility and respecting the property rights of the people. And this is in harmony with our Constitution, which is intended which recognizes the individual rights of life, liberty, and property, and institutes government to protect those rights. Government doesn't have the right to take property from some to give to others, even though it does so. It doesn't have the right to kill people, and though it does so. It certainly doesn't have the right to enslave people, and it has done so. So we're fortunate in America because we've been under a constitution and a mindset and a way of thought for 200 years. There was a book written by a fellow by the name of Frederick Bastiat called The Law, which is very fundamental and describes the connection between those three rights. On property rights, there's been some confusion as how to define them. It's not confusing at all. A person has the right to use their property as they see fit, provided they do not harm the property rights of their neighbors or the public. It's very simple. And so this land use process, zoning is good when it does provide those separations so that a use does not interfere with another use. As you mentioned, maybe a feedlot next to a hospital or an airport in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
Mr. Galley, could you
okay,
wrap it up?
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm time myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Wayne Starr. I've lived in Arnold for 7 years and owned property there for 22 years. And I'm concerned with property rights. I haven't researched these things completely, but it appears to me that either alternatives A, B, and C violate some basic property rights that our country was founded upon. In my opinion, that any reason for any kind of rezoning at all should be at the request of the individual property owner. And it seems to me that this body has already invited some lawsuits by its possibly disregard of property rights in the past, and I'd be willing to bet that if either A, B, or C were to go through, you'd just be inviting more, and I don't think this county can afford those kind of lawsuits. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Good morning. My name is Tim Laddish. I'm from Sheep Ranch. I own property there and live there. And I'm here just to state, along with the 51% of the tables of the at the community meetings that happen throughout this county, that, to my opinion, Alternative B provides the best prospect for us to preserve and protect the good and wonderful things that make this county a great place to live. I do want to point out, and this became clear at the community meeting that I attended, that the fact that Alternative C would promote more development, more residences, and hopefully more job growth does not mean necessarily that the county would be in better fiscal shape. And I'm very concerned about the fiscal position of the county and the problems that you people are trying to deal with right now. And I just wanted to make the point that the study itself does not indicate that the county, which alternative would be better for the county in making the choice as far as the fiscal situation of the county itself goes. And I just think that Alternative B would provide us with a county that maintains the wonderful things that Calaveras now provides as a place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Laddish.
Morning. I appreciated, my name is Paul Stein, by the way, Calaveras County. I appreciated the planning process that we've been through for the past several years, culminating in a meeting in Copperopolis where I had the esteemed opportunity to sit with John Buckley at the same planning table. And I think we found out that we actually have more in common than either of us would have believed. So we'll see how that actually comes out. I'm sure you'll be hearing from John in a little while. I would urge your direction today, whatever else happens and whatever else you hear. I think those of us that are in the planning community and the development community are anxious for some direction from your board, and we know that it's been a very long and arduous process for you as well, but we would hope that you do take some action today. In my opinion, essential to good planning is the establishment of adequate-sized infrastructure. You've been hearing that a lot already. Folks from CCWD have been very eloquent about that already, and I'll touch on that in just a few minutes. But the anticipated growth potential for Calaveras County going forward, and by infrastructure I mean roads, water systems, wastewater systems, recreation potential, however you want to define infrastructure. I think that in my opinion, in the 30 years that I've lived here, we haven't been adequately long-term planning for a vision for people coming here. We do hopscotch planning, we do sort of haphazard fits and starts planning, and if you have a long-term vision, which most of these community plans that we've been working on do, you'll see that we're planning for more people than we have now. And in my opinion, alternative C is the direction that you need to go in. Even if the people don't come, you want to plan your infrastructure. You want to build your roads, your water systems, your wastewater systems, your recreation potential to accommodate, and your power potential to accommodate an influx of people so that it is well planned and well managed. If you take into consideration the other two alternatives, the viable alternatives, and I don't mean to dismiss D, but I haven't seen D analyzed in any context, so I really can't speak to that. But of the three that we've been given the opportunity to really analyze, in my opinion, C is the one that you need to go to, because when you come to developers, as Ed Pattison said, the developers are the ones that are going to help you fund your infrastructure. When you come to a developer and you say, we only want you to pay for the development cost, the infrastructure cost for your development, you end up missing the opportunity to plan for a bigger amount of people or a greater amount of people coming here. So when you have a developer putting infrastructure in the ground, you don't want to ask him to put in an 8-inch pipe. Have him put in a 12-inch pipe so that you know that you're going to have the infrastructure in place when growth occurs. And it really makes a much better long-range plan come to fruition. Alternative C, from my standpoint, and again, the CCWD board members have already talked about water rights. This county was blessed with pre-1914 water rights. We are one of the 17 original counties in California, and those water rights are always going to be under outside pressure to be taken away. If you plan for C, alternative C, you're putting the state on notice, and the State Water Resource Control Board handles those water rights. They hold them in reservation for Calaveras County, for the people of Calaveras County. If you say we're only going to need 30,000 people more coming here, well, then the State Water Resource Control Board could very easily go to some of these other counties when they come and ask for water rights out of the Stanislaus or the McCollum to say, well, you guys aren't planning for it. You don't need it. We're going to give them away. That's a very, very real threat, and I don't make that idly, and I think that Ed Pattison and the other CCWD board members would echo that sentiment. Lastly, I want to, again, urge your consideration of establishing a community conservation plan for this county. Marita, I think, and I share that sentiment. When I was on the Department of Fish and Game, I learned very well about habitat conservation plans, and I also learned from Karen Scarborough, the Assistant Secretary of Resources, that there are counties in Southern California, primarily San Diego County, Ventura County, Riverside County, that have put community conservation plans over their entire county, so that when you go in and pull a permit or ask a board or the Planning Commission to do a development, basically the programmatic work for your biological, your cultural, your geotechnical, your air quality analysis has all been done for the entire county. Then you do site-specific work on your particular project. So again, that is very much supported by the regulatory agencies, Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, Army Corps of Engineers. If you have the opportunity to do a community conservation plan now, which you can do programmatically, I would definitely urge that.
Mr. Stein, thank you.
Thank you,
very
Madam
much.
Chair.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Jeff Davidson. I'll wear a couple hats here today if I can. First of all, just to speak in regards to, I think Bob Dean did an excellent job in giving you a summary of CCWD's board's response to Plan C. I want to kind of give an example so we can try to solidify our concern on some of the smaller communities. You know, there are some 60 other water utilities or special districts in the county, many of them on very, very small scale. I use an example, the Wallace Community Services District, many times when I talk about a district that I think is doomed for failure, only because, not because of the way they're trying to operate, but just because they don't have the economy of scale. And if we plan our communities to be at such a small level, particularly these ones that do have water and sewer service, if we continue to keep them small, we can pretty much count on them failing in the future because they will not be able to sustain themselves and I don't really know what the break-even point is on some of these districts, but you can well imagine if only 100 people are paying into a system where 200 people were planned to pay for it, there's going to be some significant problems. Some of the other concerns, I'll take off my CCWD hat at this time. Well, I do want to mention that probably the most interested party in this community plan right now in the water business is not CCWD, although we are committed and do care about it. It's probably Stockton East Water District or the city of Stockton. The current Stockton community plan or their general plan, the Stockton general plan, says they're going to take 15,000 acre feet of our Calaveras County reservation. And we need a general plan that we can put in front of them and say, sorry, it's already spoken for, or they will take that water from us. Now, on a personal level, I think that there are a couple of things I'm concerned about in regards to this report. It's been very difficult for me as a property owner to identify exactly where my property lies, and I think that it would have been helpful to have some way to click on your parcel and find out what each alternative could possibly change and how it could possibly change. I think that inability to see property lines clearly is creating a little bit of hysteria. People don't know exactly what's going to happen to their property. Also, I have concerns about the conflicts in the job data. I think I've mentioned before that these plans show for job growth over the next 20-some years in West Point to go up to approximately 2,000 jobs. And in Valley Springs, where we currently have the highest percentage of commercial property, the only area with water and sewer available, significant water and sewer available, and an abundance of commercial property, it shows for the jobs to be created over the next 25 years to be about 145. And I would like to see that if it is just a mistake, I'd like to see it taken out of the record, because I think when people come to our community and open our general plan and look to an area like Valley Springs and see that our county is only planning for job growth in Valley Springs area of 145, I think that may prohibit some people from wanting to locate a business in Valley Springs. Also, I think that we hear folks talk about the percentages of voting at these different community meetings. I don't think that is valid or scientific. I know that many of the groups, Keep It Rural, MyValleySprings.com, attended multiple community meetings. And if the only way to say that it was a fair vote would be to say that for certain that only people in each community voted in their community for one alternative or another. So I don't think that should be part of your consideration, that 51% chose Plan B, because I know and that we saw the same faces at different community meetings, and they voted each and every time. So I don't think that should be considered. Also, what I'm hoping is that there's a recognition of some flexibility in the commercial boundaries. I think that that's something that we really need to make easier. Modern retail and modern businesses, for the most part now, have a rectangle, and they have an idea exactly what they want to have. All the Kragen stores that are being built in Northern California now are exactly the same, and they do that for a reason. Am I at 5 minutes already?
15 seconds.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we need to have flexibility in that. And lastly, I just think, really this is just a matter of it's time to show some leadership and do what's right for Calaveras County. I think that there are willing people who want to see some land change, like myself on my property, and there are those that don't want to see land change. And I think both parties need to be treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson.
I'm John Ellis. I'm from Arnold. Quickly on the alternatives, I do support alternative C, but what you hear today is people talking about community plans. This is not a community plan. This is a general plan. And I think that the idea to just do a general plan and think that's all that we're doing here, I think that's wrong and it should be corrected. We do have existing community plans. And I do believe that a policy statement should be included in our update of the general plan that recognizes the community plans, and that these community plans will take priority over the general plan and land use decisions. I think that's important from the standpoint that people that live in communities should have the right to determine what's happening in their locale. I don't think it's necessarily right that the people in Valley Springs should be dictating what happens up in Arnold or vice versa. So I think that's a very important part of what we do here. Now, the second part that I would like to say is I support everything that CCWD has been saying about the water and water conservation and trying to plan for water. We are a water-rich county, and we should recognize that. What we are is we're infrastructure poor. So that is our inherent problem. And in order to deal with that problem, I have just passed out a proposed infill, what I call a proposed infill economic development policy. I think it's clear with the direction that we're going with our general plan, it's an infill policy. But if you go through the general plan, we aren't talking about what that really means or how are we going to promote that. How is that going to happen? A lot of times, I sat on the Arnold Community Plan for I don't know how many years to get that revised. It was quite a chore. And we came up with a lot of good ideas. And some of those minor things have happened, but we still have many obstacles to overcome in order to implement what we're trying to achieve in the community of Arnold. And part of that is the regulation that we're going to have to deal with in order to, for example, we want to do a Main Street in Arnold. So we're going to have to deal with regulations in order to get this Main Street concept going. And we all know that government's poor. I don't want to talk about the present economy right now. I believe that the economy will come back and there will be investment money available in the future. I'm positive that way. I believe that this county government has an opportunity to start getting some of these communities to develop in the way that we sit here and we spend all these energy and time on saying what we want our communities to look like. But the problem is, many times, well, like with our current policies, our current zoning and regulation is designed for large acreage development. But they don't take in consideration necessarily the restrictions, the inherent restrictions that you find in community infill development, such as setbacks, density, those types of things. And when we have a disdain for variances, I guess the state has basically come up with a disdain for variances. I think we need to address these issues. I think we need to create what I call developer incentives, and that's what this, if you will read this, it's just a rough guideline. This was modeled off of Georgia, the state of Georgia, who has a lot of blight, very historical blight that goes back hundreds of years, and they've been very successful in upgrading their communities by entering into a partnership with development to get these things done. I think we should address this in this general plan update. I think this should be one of the policies or policies should be adopted in order to deal with this issue. I would really like to see Calaveras County capitalize on its inherent qualities, its resources, the natural resources here. That's why people come here. People don't come here, by the way, to live on top of each other. They come here to get away from that, and you got to remember that. So when you're doing your decision making, I think that's an important part of your decision making, is to recognize that. If you want to stop people from coming here, or if you want to change what we have here, then start putting people on top of each other. It's going to be a whole nother demographic that you're going to start seeing here, and it's going to start dictating other types of policies that I don't think that the reason why we all came here to live here. So it's a difficult process that you're going through. I am a big advocate of private properties rights. This county historically has always been a very private properties right county, and I hope you maintain that. And that is given heavy consideration in whatever policies that you adopt. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis.
Good morning. I'm Mike Delorto from McAlamy Hill. Madam Chairman, board members, commission. I'm here representing the Central Sierra Mining Association. Just to give you a little background, most of the communities in Calaveras County are where they are because of mining. Their water infrastructure, primary, original, is because of mining. Mining in Calaveras County has been one of the predominant economic factors in Calaveras County from the gold rush time up until probably the mid-'80s. We still are significant. I sent a letter forward to you. We haven't picked any of the ABCs or even Ds. Our interests are limited and focused. Looking at, there's a little bit of everything in A and B and C and this, and it goes back and forth, and it's kind of like a shell game. You know, if you're looking for your interest, bean, 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 where's the bean? So we didn't choose any of those things. But we did want to bring forward two basic issues. One is having to do with mineral resource areas. In your staff report, or the request for direction, I understand that you've already given direction before I got here, or you're pretty strong about it. I would point out that in their staff report in 3, it's item A is blatantly incorrect. Calaveras County is the lead agency for all mining permits and the approval of all reclamation plans. The State of California Department of Mines and Reclamation does have a responsibility to take action if you fail to meet your obligations as a lead agency. The current general plan also addresses the mineral resources in the conservation element, and policies and goals are spread throughout the plan relative to mineral resources. The Calaveras County is more fortunate than most counties in that we had a group of people back in the 80s when the general plan was created at that time that had experience and knowledge, including Bill Fuller, who also served on the State Mines and Geology Board, outstanding historian and his geologist on world order, was the lead to put together the information that you see in the current general plan that shows where historic and current mineral resources are expected to be or may be or not. We request, well, the other issue that we would like to address is the Chapter 7 of the land use element, which is legally existing non-conforming land uses. This addresses those concerns and changes that people may be affected by because of these new general plan changes. In 1982, this was put into the general plan to protect the citizens from the wishes or visions of others for their own property rights that are already approved or otherwise qualified legally under the law. So our requests are threefold. One is that the Chapter 5 of the Mineral Resource Zone, all the goals and policies related to that spread out through the current general plan, be included in any final plan that you come up with, whether it's A, B, C, D, anything else. And also that the plan include a clause that says the county will develop a right to mine ordinance similar to the right to farm ordinance, which basically would preserve or put on notice any encroaching uses to mineral lands, that these are mineral lands. And thirdly, that Chapter 7 of the non-conforming land use and zoning of the land use element be included in any one of these alternatives you come up with. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Delorto.
Honorable Supervisors and Commissioners, my name is Shauna Hogan. I live in Valley Springs. I'm a Rancho Calaveras landowner. Rancho Calaveras landowners have made it perfectly clear that we are happy with our special plan. We fought this battle with those trying to include us in the Valley Springs Community Plan, and we won. So I thought. Much to my surprise, I see that the general plan alternatives A, B, and C all impose on the Rancho Calaveras Special Plan new land use designations. This begs the question, where was our supervisor? All parcels in the Rancho Calaveras Special Plan are currently designated RR. That is rural residential, one unit on 1 to 5 acres. The alternatives A, B, and C change close to half of Rancho Calaveras to RL, which is residential low density, which is 1 to 6 units per acre. That's a huge change. And like I said, much to my surprise, I didn't really pay attention much because I thought we won this battle. And I looked at the maps yesterday and discovered this. I was flabbergasted. Alternate D is the only option that respects the property rights of Rancho Calaveras property owners and preserves the Rancho Calaveras Special Plan. I support alternative D. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Scott Clan with the Calaveras Ag Coalition, Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, and a small winery owner in District 4. First off, I'd like to start off by thanking Mr. Larde, Mr. White, and Mr. Pestizo for some very positive interactions that the Ag Coalition have had with them. We've gotten really good information from them, subsequent positive communication. We do still have a couple of follow-up questions from last week that haven't been answered, but we're respectful that they were madly preparing for this meeting, I'm sure. And the biggest clarification we're looking for is what is the actual number of undeveloped parcels in the 5 to 40 size range that are located in the natural resource land use designation? And can we assume all these legally existing non-conforming parcels in natural resource land use designation maintain their legal status with the ability to develop a single family residence? That being said, we do expect to get those answers soon. So I'd like to add that the Ag Coalition is not ready to support any of the alternatives yet. We have still some great, although we see positive things in all three of them, although we haven't seen D, we also see some problems with them. Our biggest concern is the status of the legally existing residential agriculture parcels. In the current general plan, the RA land use classification is within the natural resources land use designation. Alternatives B and C place the RA classification into the residential land use designation. The Ag Coalition believes that the RA classification needs to remain in natural resource land use designation. The RA land use classification is needed for those existing and future small-scale and personal-scale farming operations within the natural resource land use designation. I think we all are becoming acutely aware of the fact that the future of agriculture is in the small-scale and personal-scale operation. So we feel very strongly and would like to continue discussing that with county staff, especially if we end up with the dreaded 40-acre minimums that are being talked about. The use of the RA classification can be limited to those applications as proposed to the Planning Department by the Agricultural Coalition. First off, legally existing individually owned parcels in the natural resource land use designation ranging in size from 5 to 40 acres that are outside of an established subdivision. Very important distinction there. Also, use as a buffer and transition zone between larger ag operations and residential community plan areas and subdivisions. 3, when density transfer or cluster development is appropriate on lands designated as natural resources. 4, when a need is demonstrated in providing farm family home sites. And finally, existing parcels that are currently and appropriately designated residential agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clan.
Good morning. I'm Bob Garamendi with the Ag Coalition, and I'm just following up on a couple of things that Scott said. As was pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, the single largest impact or biggest impact this general plan update will have is on ag lands. It's taking 140,000 acres from residential ag and placing it into ag use. The concern we have is with the 40-acre minimum parcel size. And I'd like some clarification as to the 40-acre density versus the 40-acre minimum parcel size. It has been said and argued that the 40-acre minimum parcel size is a deterrent to rural sprawl. In our opinion, it will promote rural sprawl based on the fact you're cutting up lands into 40-acre chunks in which that residential density could be handled in a much, much less acreage. So an example would be if you had 320-acre parcel at 40-acre density, you have 8 possible residential sites. If you had a 5-acre minimum under a 40-acre density, you can accomplish that same density with 40 acres, leaving a 280-acre parcel open, clear, and not impacted by the development. The common theme here today, at least something I've heard throughout most of the speakers, is flexibility. And we would reiterate that, the importance to give the landowner flexibility to do what they think is necessary as they go through their operations, their business, to deal with what might come in the future. Limiting it to a 40-acre minimum parcel size, in the Ag Coalition's opinion, would take away a lot of the flexibility that we currently have, and we would hope the board and commission will take a very, very close look at that one issue. Just a follow-up would be, within the alternatives report, they list a series of uses within each land use designation. The question we would have, how is that list of uses going to be moved forward into the general plan update? Are we limiting ourselves by that list of current list of uses? Are we locking ourselves in? We want to be careful, or we'd like to know how that's going to be utilized as we move down the process here. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garamendi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Roger Pitto, Calaveras County. There's a whole bunch of things I'd like to discuss, but I got to try to get through this in 5 minutes. I know. Yes, ma'am. But I am going to speak directly to Chapter 7, what originally was called in 82, the savings clause, the grandfather clause. That has went through 1980, the original general plan, modern general plan in 82, resupported in 86 update, and resupported in a 96 rewrite. With one exception, I'm speaking as an individual. I belong to several different organizations, and I've made presentations to several of them. I've talked to several members of the Taxpayers Association, so on and so forth. I made a presentation to the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors regarding this matter. They asked that, for the record, that they support the continuation of this Chapter 7 concept. As fast as I can go, the reason it was put in originally was back in 82, several people, when the modern general plan was written, wanted to look at Calaveras County as a blank slate and didn't like some of the things that existed here there then. For example, Forest Meadows. So Forest Meadows, rather than being recognized as a then legal existing, properly zoned subdivision, it got painted high timberland resources. And there's many other examples. Some people didn't like apartments, so they colored something different than continuation of existing built apartments. And I don't have an opinion on those different land uses particularly. But the concern was that what happens if you are not recognized in this new general plan, as has been 3 times before, as a legally existing, either conforming or non-conforming land use, you are going to suffer damages if you have a casualty loss, and that's a complicated issue. there's an issue as to timing of zoning. I've heard some people say, oh, geez, you know, we're going to color your little service station as a park, but we won't change the zoning until you sell it. That destroys a person's property value. More so in a casualty loss, but also more so today. And if you have an existing land use, it gets wiped out by the new general plan, and it will be because there's no vesting rights to zoning unless it's recognized. You go to a bank today, and the only way you can get money is if you don't need it. The old joke, but that's true. But they not only look at your title policies, they look at whether your building permits existing are legal, and they look at what your land use designation or zoning is. They don't know the difference between a designation and zoning, most of them. And if A, B, or C, or B or C particularly, are adopted, there are some existing land uses out there, and I'll use a vet hospital that I know well that is currently legally land use designated and zoned as a large vet hospital, only one in this county. And I was involved with getting that done in 1985. That is going to be colored green under B or C. It's going to become a 40-acre minimum. What happens to these people if they have a casualty loss, want to do a remodel or an enlargement? They have to go through the planning department and a finding of consistency with the general plan and zoning. They go hand in hand, and zoning has to reflect the general plan, which is senior. They're going to lose their property right. They're going to lose their land value. We're going to lose the land use, and I can't understate this. And I think that's one of the reasons that you have alternative D. But if you would continue, notwithstanding what Mr. Mateer said in his 2006 confidential report to the planning department, the savings clause, whatever you want to call it, the legally existing non-conforming land use, but it also deals with legal existing land uses now, is not appropriately put in the zoning code. It's appropriately put in the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
My name is Joel Pitto, and to the Honorable Board, I want to give appreciation for the fact that each one of you today has acknowledged the importance of mining and mineral resources to our county. Two of you spoke up on the protection of the resources to be under an overlay plan. If it worked, I have no problem with that, but I'm told by reputable sources, or semi-reputable sources, that this is illegal to do it in this manner. So if you could get that issue clarified amongst yourselves, and if it indeed is illegal, could the other two members come over to the side of the majority? It would be greatly appreciated. And Mr. Mateer, you came to one of our towns and were treated a little bit harshly. I appreciate the fact that you took it with good humor and moved ahead and included our wishes into your plans. I don't see A, B, C, or D at all working in any way. It's going to have to be some cobbled use of the four of those. And when you get to option E, please consider the fact we can't move these resources anywhere else. They are where they are, and they're the biggest potential profit zone for this county. If you've noticed, the price of gold's up to $1,140 an ounce today. This county is built on top of nothing but gold mines. And anything you do to prevent their reopening is only going to be shooting yourself in the foot. So let us prevent massive lawsuits and infighting and move forward on the issue, clarify the point of the overlay, and continue to protect our mineral resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Good morning, Ron Randall, Valley Springs, California. And I have some comments and maybe a couple questions. To start with, I'm not in favor for any of these current proposals. With input from 216 people out of approximately 45,000 people, that's approximately one person's opinion out of every 200. With more than half of these comments from District 2 only, how accurate can these alternatives reflect the will of the people? And in a percent figure of 1 to 100, on such a small percentage, would you base any of your personal decisions on such a small percentage? We have a lot more faith in this Board of Supervisors than in this process. You have some decisions, some tough decisions to make, but that is we pay you so well for. Protect our rights, and thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take the next three, and John, just before you, I think we'll take a 5-minute stand-up break. So, yes, you are the coach. I am. That's true. Thank you. No, John, you can stand there. I just want to let everybody know we are going to take a 7-inning stretch. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'm Michael Weidrich. I'm a resident of Valley Springs, California. I'm here this morning because I'm quite confused about this whole process. I've been to many of the different meetings, whether they be stakeholders meetings, community meetings, meetings in Rancho Calaveras or the property owners, and we felt that we were part of the process of this whole thing and that they were listening to us and that we were helping guide them into the direction that we wanted our community to go. When I got here this morning, I looked over on the table at alternatives A, B, and C. This is the first time I've seen them as today because some of us of my generation still have to work every day. I'm not able to make a lot of these meetings, but when I walked in here, I was very depressed at the fact that overwhelmingly I've made the Board of Supervisors and people in this county aware of meetings that we had in Rancho Calaveras and the vote of those residents of what they wanted to happen in Rancho Calaveras. When I look at these maps over here this morning, all three of them show Rancho Calaveras zoning to be changed to change it from 1 house per acre to as many as 6 residences per acre. I'm not sure how you could possibly keep what that community was designed to be the same when you open the door for them to come in there and put townhouses and condos on every empty lot that's left there, because we all know how greed affects people. And when people see they can make more money by coming in there and doing that, that's what's going to happen. So when I first came to this county and I looked and the first place I looked was La Quintana, and they mentioned something about CC&Rs. And I asked them what they were, and I read them. And they told me what I could and could not do based on that community's idea of what they wanted in their community. And I told them, we're done looking here. I want to look outside of this community because I had different ideas of what I wanted to do on my own land with my own children. And because of that, I moved into the Rancho Calaveras area, where I was allowed to have animals on my property, and I knew that I had 1 house on my acre of land, and that's all that was ever going to be there. And I've heard a lot of talk this morning about infrastructure, and I'm wondering how you could possibly turn a place like Rancho Calaveras, where there's 1 house per half acre, it has to be a minimum of a half acre to put a house on it, how you could possibly put 6 houses on that same half acre, or residences for 6 families on 1 half acre, and not require the rest of the people that are there to pay for the improvements to the water system and the sewer system that will be necessary to do that. Because there is no way you can change the designation of use in that area without changing the fact that there's no sewers there and bringing the sewers in, which means that every single person that lives in Rancho Calaveras will be forced to hook up to that system, because we all know that's the way it works. When the infrastructure comes in, it doesn't matter if yours works okay or not, you're forced to hook up to it. And I'm wondering if you're allowed to do that in Rancho Calaveras and you're allowed to do that in downtown Valley Springs, how long is it going to take you to get to Burson Road where I live? Because that's what's going to be next. Because as soon as they come in there and start making money, they're coming after my property. And all of a sudden, the property that I moved out of Rancho Calaveras because I wanted more land, for animals and to grow, crops and stuff like that. So I went out there and bought 8 acres, and I bought that for 2 different reasons. One is that I just stated, and the other one was because I was told at the time, based on the CC&Rs of that area, that I could have a second dwelling on my property for an in-laws quarters. When I look at this designation over here, I will no longer be able to do that. So I've worked my entire life, and I've given part of my life in support of the Constitution of this country for my rights on my land, and you guys are trampling all over them.
Yeah!
Hi, I'm John Paletti from West Point, District 2, and I'm here to really just to support the process that we went through in West Point in developing our community plan and our vision for our area. I think we, at least in our little area, mostly align ourselves with B, and the people in our area are very interested in protecting the resources that we have up in our area that actually benefit not only our community but the whole state: the clean air, the land, the timber, and the clean water. And what I want to make sure is that in previous board meetings we have submitted our community plan and our vision statements and so forth, and that I see that in the B that we have here, A or C, that it's not detailed enough to show whether you're really considering what our vision for our area is. And we know that there's going to be change. We know that there's going to be winners and losers, but we think we've made a healthy compromise for our area. I don't know about Valley Springs and all those other areas, but at least for our area. And that you take a look at it, we have a community center which is multi-use, with a buffer area of low density around the outside of it. And I don't think that the people in our area really voted for having 40-acre minimums right next to the town. So if you could please consider that in the future and take a look at what we actually provided to you. And I hope that when they get down to the details that we'll see those things incorporated. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Paletti.
I'm Lanny Staniford from West Point also. John and I and several other members of our community worked very hard on our community plans. I'd like to echo what John said about incorporating the things that we presented, and I want to thank the planning process and all those involved for actually listening to us and incorporating at least some of what we have presented to you in the plans that we see there. I wanted to make 2 other comments. One, we have been working for the last 3 years, since 2007, on this community plan. We tried to get as broad a base of our community as possible to provide input. One of the things that we discovered is that it's really hard to get people to commit the time and energy that's necessary to develop a plan and people need to provide their time. If they want to have influence on what happens, they need to get involved in the political process, which is not a pretty thing all the time. And the other comment I wanted to make is about individual property rights. I support personally individual property rights, but the trickiness is that individual property rights should be supported, but with regard to the individual property rights and the individual rights of everybody around you. And that's where the problem comes in, because everybody's opinion of what constitutes undeniable rights is totally different. And those two things, my rights and your rights, can sometimes be 180 degrees different. And when that happens, there's a big crash. And one of the things we need to do in the planning process is to come to a consensus that takes care of as many people as possible, recognizing that not everybody's going to get everything they want. And communities that fail to plan to fail.
Thank you. We're going to take a 7-minute recess. I'm getting lots of requests for a lunch break. What we'll do is we'll finish all public comment. What, John, you're overweight, you don't want to eat, or you want to eat?
Hey, it took me 71 years to get that front porch.
So what we're going to do is after public comment, before any questions are answered, we will take a lunch break. I'm getting a lot of requests for that. Then we will come back, answer any questions, and then go to deliberation. Okay? Yes?
What time are you going to be back?
I don't know. It depends on what time we leave. We are still taking public comment.
Tell us before you leave when you'll be back.
Got it. Okay.
Buzz, I need a new camera.
My toes have been cold.
Okay. I'm going to start with Mr. Rain. We still have the 5 minutes, John.
Thank you very much. Is this thing on? Oh, okay. I'm John Rain, Rancho Calaveras. Wanted to thank all you folks that are here for all the hard work you're going through and putting up with us folks on this general plan thing. It's nice of you to work that hard for us, even if we don't appreciate it too much sometimes. A couple items I'd like to mention is that looking at the different plans we had up there, I think it would be a really good idea to step back and see what we could put between B and C on modifications for the general plan as it is. I don't know if it can be legally done. I really don't care. But I think there should be some type of a addendum to that general plan where, like Mr. Pitto mentioned, a veterinary hospital that's on a piece of land zoned for one thing, but they got a business going, and how you would handle that. I think a good logic and purpose addendum to the plan would be good, so when you come to these little things like that, you could get them worked out without having a big hoorah on it. One of the ladies spoke up and said that she thought it would be best for Rancho to pick Plan D. I disagree with her. Rancho doesn't need to pick anything. We don't need A, B, C, D, or even an E if it was offered. Rancho has a special plan. If you want to do anything with Rancho at any time for any reason, unless you want a revolt by the Indians on the reservation, the property owners there are going to need to vote on it, no matter what it is. We had something come up about 15 years ago involving Rancho. They put out a ballot. They asked people to mail it back in, and we sent our ballot back in marked, "No thank you, quit bothering us." I think the same thing pertains on the county general plan. Rancho is almost all built out. The places that aren't built out are too rocky and hard to build on to begin with, and when you have a development like this that's built out and a special plan, it's no thanks, we don't need to, don't bother us with the changes because we don't need them. The other item is a lot of the folks that moved up to this county moved up here for the open space, the wildlife, the recreation, and living in a rural atmosphere. I don't think there's any way you're going to ever get any RL or any other kind of RXYZ and Rancho, again because of that special plan. Change is good with the people coming into the county and the way things are going to change over the next 30 years. It's good to have a general plan worked up. People don't like change. They get a little bit afraid of it. But we do need change with a modicum of logic and common sense to it. A couple of the common senses is you don't put a residential development in the middle of a riparian meadow habitat like Gold Creek. And you darn sure don't sit around and say, well, we don't have a particular law about that, so we can't really say anything when developers put homes next to Cosgrove Creek. That is where we need a good general plan with different modifications put into that goulash so it benefits everybody in the county. Smart growth, in my mind, doesn't mean the highfalutin stuff that people have been throwing around. Smart growth for development under the general plan here would mean make sure you have the residences and the businesses that will support fire, sheriffs, and medical needs for the county in an amount of tax revenue that you can support it to meet the needs of that community. Residential alone never pays for fire and police and medical. So as the county grows, you need to get some type of control over your growth to make sure you have the money to keep people working and you don't have half the people that you need on salary because the state takes your money when time gets tough. So that's about it. But once again, Rancho don't have to pick a plan. We've got one. And that's enough said, and I hope the board will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Infacino. I'm facilitator of the Calaveras Planning Coalition, and I have 3 points to make this morning. First, the Calaveras Planning Coalition supports alternative map B. In your agenda packets are over 70 letters of support for alternative map B from people who could not be here this morning or this afternoon. Alternative map B was favored by a majority of the tables at the recent community workshops. And the community-centered development pattern that's found in both maps B and C was supported by over 70% of the tables at those community workshops. My second point. While the workshops gave voice to a diversity of viewpoints, by talking through some of our philosophical differences, we were able to identify many common ties that bind those who live, work, and play in Calaveras County. Many of those common ties are plainly visible on the landscapes of our communities. Our communities have a variety of land use densities, of parcel sizes, and of land uses, so that school children, high school graduates, newlyweds, small businesses, agriculture and forestry all have places where they can be free to thrive. Our communities include active churches, flying flags, and war memorials, because in Calaveras County, people still value loyalty to our faith. We still value allegiance to our flag, and we still value sacrifices for our country. These and many other structural elements of our landscape help to nurture the rural values that reside deep within us, the rural values that make us special, the rural values that make this Calaveras County. My third point. None of us will get where we want to go if we struggle against each other at cross purposes. None of us will pull together if the general plan caters to only one interest group at the expense of all others. To meet the challenges ahead, we must first challenge ourselves to be better as a community than we are inclined to be as individuals. We must challenge ourselves to craft a general plan that benefits not only our own self-interest, but also the interests of others. In the days ahead, people will be looking to community leaders, including you supervisors and you commissioners. They'll be counting on you to help to heal the wounds in our community and to lead us through these difficult times with hope, with action, and with courage. I pray that God will give you all the strength to do so. And I'm confident that those prayers will be answered. Thank you, and God bless.
David Silva, Calaveritas. Thanks for being here, folks. I would not want to be in your chairs. The mission statement of the Calaveras County government is, quote, to provide service, infrastructure, and leadership necessary to advance a safe community, maintain a high quality of life, and to protect personal liberties of all its citizens. The general plan update is to be a blueprint for the future. Individuals purchase property with future usage in mind. So this is all about the future. This series of 3 alternative choices will dramatically alter land usage rights no matter the choice made. I wish an answer from Mr. Mintier. Sir, your firm has formulated several general plan updates in California. Is that correct?
Mr. Silva, we're taking all questions now.
I see. All right. Well, my question to the man was, I'm curious what the alternatives are. What has evolved as those 3 alternatives in other counties where these folks have done their work? What has the 3, 4, 5 years of research evolved? I just have a distinct feeling they're similar, no matter the county. There's 120 discrete usages have been reduced to 22. The discrete usages is Mr. Mintier's description today. Of those 22 categories, what were the considerations made in that reduction from 120 to 22? That means something had to go. I'm going to speak now personally. This is coming from my own personal experience with this entire endeavor that's been going on with General Plan Update. There's a clay quarry on the property that I'm using, and it's a most secondary usage. There's 2 forest products producers. I am one of those. There's another fellow. These are heavy industrial usages. The property's been M2 zoned years and years and years. Initially, it was Calaveras Cement. It was purchased by Mr. Tom Coe. He purchased that property with the intention of using it as heavy industrial. He has great plans for the future. There's almost 800 acres involved there. Under this plan, it's to become mineral resource. Now, where was the due diligence on how that property is being used right now, today, as opposed to what it's going to be termed usage in the future? Because it has a clay quarry on it, that allowed us to, or allowed Mr. Mintier the ability to rezone it. And that's what this is this is a rezoning. And sure, we can operate there until we close our businesses, but then what happens to those 800 acres that were purchased with the industrial property, the full impetus for purchase? That's happening all over this county. I speak of it from my experience, but how many other people who can't be here today because they're working on their industrial property? It's very difficult for working people to continue to be vigilant in this process that's lasted, where are we now, 4 years? We continue to come to meetings. I see the same faces. I see the same results. I almost feel like it's organized, very well organized. But with the designation being changed to mineral resource, the gray area of argument regarding future usages looms huge. You can take these things to courtrooms and fight with them and just delay any kind of development within the county. Not that I'm not looking at wide open developments, but I am looking at the ability to get Calaveras County out of its economic hole. We're not producing anything in this county at this point, or very, very little. We have retail. There's no industrial base left. At one time, we did have plenty of timber resource. We did have plenty of mining. Where are we now? What is the base income now? It ran hard for a while on housing. Well, we saw how that worked. The properties that were purchased in the 80s with the expressed usage of M2 are now going to become a mineral resource. And we don't even know the definition of that. When you own 800 acres, that's not comfortable. Not comfortable at all. If B and C are enacted, the mineral resource is gone. So what happens then? And what becomes of the properties if B and C are chosen? We don't know. These are unanswered questions. This is the future. The big picture I see is M2 becomes mineral resource usage that's described by Mr. Mintier as a better, cleaner land use designation. And that land use designation, if we were to choose B or A or B, is gone.
Mr. Silva, time's up. Did you want to put a quick wrap on that?
Sure. The properties I'm personally involved in are now enjoying M2. Your proposal to change from M2 to heavy industrial to mineral resource is a real degradation to our property and the future of Calaveras County's economy. So it's a full circle back to Calaveras County's mission statement to protect personal liberties.
Thank you, Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Tim.
Did you sign in?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good. Thank you.
My name is Katie Clough. I do not live in Valley Springs. I live in Rancho Calaveras. I was at a meeting on the 23rd of February where there was a vote meeting, and we voted Rancho Calaveras out of the community plan. We figured, okay, we're all right now, but we'll watch a general plan. I came from Tracy, and I was living in a rural residential area till it was taken over. And what happened was they put sewer and water down the middle of our road, and we had to pay $2,700 a year attached to our taxes. We didn't get the sewer and water because we weren't allocated for it. I seem to see this happening here now. We have our own special plan. We don't need another special plan. And I honestly feel that since we had voted out of the community plan, that maybe you should look elsewhere besides rezoning Rancho Calaveras RL. I also am a little bit tired, and I think some people in this room will agree with me, of 10% of the people deciding what 97% of the people are going to do with their land. I think that we should all have our own rights. And I think that before you decide to change Rancho Calaveras, maybe you should talk to the directors. That might help a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Tim McSorley, Executive Director of the Calaveras Council of Governments. I'm going to speak in a couple of broad areas and then focus on the Valley Springs project, since that was a question from the consultants to the Board of Supervisors. Essentially, the COG supports the planning process. We've done that in a number of fronts by approving projects in our overall work program. We've helped fund the circulation element. We've helped fund the U-Plan model that you've heard so much about, and we've also helped fund the Valley Springs Community Plan process to the tune of $663,000. In today's regulatory environment, the planning process gets more and more difficult. We talk about AB 32, SB 375 as being some air quality issues, greenhouse gas issues. So it is very difficult for the board to make some decisions, and a lot of time for the public to understand what some of those regulations are and how we need to comply with those. I had a brief discussion with a lady in the audience at the break, and it kind of falls under one of these unfunded mandate kind of things. When we plan for infrastructure, there's been a lot of talk about infrastructure to spur the economy, if you will, to help the economic benefit. We have tourism that we talk about, which relates to roads, because we do roads and transportation. These are interregional issues where we have visitors coming to the county to the benefit of the county in regards of economics, but perhaps to a detriment to the county in terms of providing that infrastructure. The information highway, broadband issues, that actually is part of the infrastructure, and it would actually decrease, in my opinion, the need for additional transportation facilities. There are a myriad of issues that are out there for you folks to consider. As it relates to Valley Springs, just briefly, in 2009 we were awarded a grant to the tune of $255,000. We held a number of community meetings, some charrettes. We had, at the charrettes last May, we had 190 people involved. At the August 27th meeting, we had 175 people there. And then, as Ms. Clough mentioned, at the February workshops, we had over 500 people involved. And as Mr. Randall mentioned earlier, he's got a concern about what you might call consensus. I think that that's an issue, a process issue perhaps, that the board and the commission need to consider. One of the question in your staff report was relative to Valley Springs is that you didn't have a map that demonstrated the consensus of the community. And that word is being thrown around a lot. George and I have had that discussion, but I think it's a valuable topic of discussion. Now more specific to the Valley Springs project. The alternatives report, and I think this was mentioned, Jeff Davidson mentioned on page 56 relative to the jobs issue. Again, I would mention that that alternatives report identifies as many as 2,000 jobs in West Point. Hallelujah. But only 146 in Valley Springs. And if we're in fact focusing the development in the western end of the counties, primarily in Copperopolis and Valley Springs, I think there's a little bit of a disparity there that we need to get resolved. The other large issue relative to Valley Springs, it's a policy issue so that we can proceed with some of our planning processes, is what we call the Valley Springs bypass. It's a major infrastructure improvement. There may be some very big obstacles that are in front of us if we need to or want to pursue that transportation facility. So again, as kind of a policy question to the board, do you want us to continue planning for that facility as part of the Valley Springs project, but also as the overall general plan project? And then finally, directly relating to your question, or to the question about Valley Springs, we would ask and recommend that the both alternative maps that we have submitted, be run utilizing the U-Plan model. The model is essentially paid for. It wouldn't extend the period necessary for final determination of the general plan direction. So we're thinking that, or we're hoping that we can do that and unfold either of those alternatives within the general plan process.
Thank you, Mr. McSorley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McSorley.
Hi, my name is Richard Clough, and I'm from Rancho Calaveras. Here we go again, same issues. My wife spoke a couple times before me, so I want to give you the impression that I'm not up here fighting for freedom or rights, because I've been married almost 40 years, and I'm not so sure that's free.
Oh, wait a minute, your time is up.
I'm just one of those concerned property owners that has a very small piece of property, and my concerns are it's a sum total of 35 years worth of work that I've put into. When I moved up here, I wanted a place where I can have a horse if I wanted. I can't chase the darn things anymore and catch them, so they're a bit of a problem. A goat, a chicken, whatever. If you put 6 houses next to me in that property, that isn't going to work. Or if you put an oversized sewer line down the road and tell me I can hook up to it later and charge me extra money for it, and don't tell me you can't have them, it's already happened. just because the developer was required to put in a sewer line, I'm in trouble again. You know, I'm taxed out of my home. What I don't like seeing is a small amount of community activists involving themselves to the point of attending every meeting that you have and making votes on different land use areas where people that have a right thought in mind, you know, they figure, well, this is the direction the community wants to go. And they're doing their jobs, and they're doing it the right way, and they're costing a lot of money. But maybe you should have gone to the colleges and asked the children what they want for their future, because they're the ones that are going to inherit these properties, and they're the ones that are going to have to deal with it. I don't see any college kids or any young people out here involved in this community planning process. They should be. I do know that the people from Rancho Calaveras said, we want to keep what we have. And most of us came up here, if you go look at a good part of the people there, they're elderly, they're retired, they're come from all walks of life. But we like animals. We kind of like one another, but we want to keep them 3 or 4 acres away. Yeah, we're just going to fight you. And Russ, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, because part of your new stump out there for running for council was to keep Rancho Calaveras as it is, as land use designations there as it is. And this sure doesn't look like that's happening. So we're going to hold your feet to the fire on it. Okay? Thanks, folks. Have a good one.
You better hold more than his feet to the fire. You better find a stake to put him onto or something, because you can promise anything during campaigning, but whether that pans out or not, you know, we all know how that works. Promises, promises. Russ made a lot of promises 3 or 4 years ago, most of which he's never kept. So if he's telling you right now that he's going to protect your rights, the load of, you know what, you probably got some of it on your property.
This is a comment
Got it.
about the
Got
general
it. Got
plan.
it. Got it.
Thank
Got
you.
it. Number one, earlier it was said that Darren Spellman, Rancho Calaveras, running for district supervisor for 5. Number one, they said there were only 27 participants in at the Valley Springs meeting. There was about 6 tables, and each one of them had about 6 to 8 people there, so there was much more than 27 participants. They also said that there were only 9% of the people that voted for D. That's because D was not an option that was given to the people. The table that I sat at the Valley Springs one, they told us you had to pick from A, B, or C, pick the one that was the least offensive to you, and change it. So at my table, I advised the people, look, if you go with this D thing, they're just going to throw it out, and they're not even going to listen to you. So just try to follow what they've asked you to do, pick A, B, or C, and modify it. And I thought it was all garbage, so I didn't really participate too much in it other than to watch what they were doing. And then this D thing came up. So truth be known, if people had another alternative, the D percentage would be much higher. And I agree with Mr. Raines earlier that said we don't need an A, B, C, D, or any of those. You know, my background is somebody who has a degree in history, and I'm well steeped in constitutional law. Okay? The government only has certain things that they're allowed to do. It's stated by the Constitution. There's 18 specific things. Those specific things were formed by a guy named Adam Smith, who influenced Benjamin Franklin and the other founders. And those 3 things that he identified were, number 1, protect the borders, which we're doing a bang-up job on that. Number 2, to maintain a standing army. And number 3, to provide infrastructure like roads and bridges to facilitate commerce and connectivity. Those are the only things that government really needs to be involved in. So what we've got going on right here is a farce. We could all just walk away today and just say, let's listen to the Constitution, and all of this hogwash can just go away. We just need to give people their rights granted by the Constitution and just forget about this garbage. Number 2, Bill Mason and Steve Kearney had a question earlier. The question was, how are these things going to affect adjacent properties? Okay? He asked what it meant by biological resource designation. The old designation was wildlife and botanical. That would be the kit fox, the beetle that lives in the elderberry tree, those type of things, like actual wildlife and botanicals. Now we're talking about protecting larvae and other things like that. Okay? So the answer to your question, Bill, is how does it affect people who have adjacent properties that are designated biological resource? It affects them because if they are upstream from those biological designations and the water flows through there, it affects those biological habitats. If they live anywhere adjacent to them, as you asked, and the water rolls downhill into that property, they are affecting it. So their property rights are going to be stripped away from them because of this biological definition, if it affects any kind of little frogs or fishes or any kind of thing like that. Not that I have anything against them, but you're taking people's rights away. That leads to number 3. How are people going to be reimbursed or made whole, that's a legal term, to be made whole, whose land values have been adversely affected in an economic way by these plans that are being submitted? Where's the money going to come from to compensate these landowners? I mentioned earlier, there's in a closed session today, you guys are going to be meeting to discuss the 3 lawsuits brought against the NEMIs against the county. You people, whoever is going to be in that meeting today, we do not have the money to pay out millions of dollars to basically uphold taking people's rights away. You know, if people want to do something, as long as they do it right, and I don't know whether they have or not. If they haven't, then they have.